All right, it is now officially 10 o'clock. Welcome everyone to our school opening 2021-2022 Q&A session. Thank you for being here. We're really excited about the start of this school year. Again, it seems like we're going to have a unique one as we did last year, but we know as a community when we come together and work through these difficult times that the results are often pretty fantastic. So again, thanks for being here. Today, we want to do a real quick run through of what is our plan for opening school. And some of the mitigation strategies that we have in place, talk a little bit about what the year will look like, and then answer any questions that you may have. We're scheduled to be here for about an hour. Hopefully we'll be able to get through our content and questions in that time. If not, we'll spend a little bit more time answering questions. As always, both myself, our principals, Beth Parker, our director of student services, are always available to you to answer questions via email or give one of us a call. I'm going to go through this, and I've got kind of a disclaimer. Oh, sorry about that. I do want to ask, please be patient with us. This is the first time we've used this webinar feature in Zoom. So hopefully everything will go off without a hitch. We did do a practice session and it went well. So hopefully practice will make perfect and things will continue to go well. But we will jump into it. We are also recording this. So if there are those that need to jump off or those that aren't able to make it, they will be able to view the recording, which we'll make available. All right, let's go. So, our philosophy of which served us very well last year. For those of you maybe that are new or don't know, we were in person for pretty much the entire school year last year, and expanded our in-person learning program each trimester, ending the year in full days in person, with about 94% of our students coming rather. And again, it's those layered mitigations that allowed us to keep kids safe. Obviously, a safe environment is first and foremost our priority, and we believe that there are lots of ways to do that. We also want to give families flexibility and realize that we have the ability to give some flexibility to our families when it comes to some of the mandates that are in place, or some of the mitigations rather that are in place. And again, we want to try and use common sense and follow science. Now, with that said, I think it's important to mention, and I need to mention right at the onset, that we are getting word that there is going to be a gubernatorial mandate of masks for K-12 schools. We believe that is going to come today at 2:30. I realize that mandate, which we will follow, will negate a lot of what you're going to hear today. However, I think it's important for us to go through today's presentation because we need a path forward, because eventually we're gonna reemerge and numbers are going to go down, and we're going to need a path forward for adapting some of these mitigation strategies. So I see, if the mandate comes today, which I really do believe it will, our plan may be a good path forward once that mandate has been lifted, and once we're able to have a little bit more control over essentially mask wearing. Just again, another program note: if you do have a question, there is a Q&A button at the bottom. Go ahead and put it in the Q&A portion. Someone did put a question in the chat, and that's okay. You don't need to re-enter it into the Q&A. But when we get to the Q&A portion, we'll address that and any other questions that we get. All right. So again, when we look at the guidance from IDPH and CDC, also from the Illinois State Board of Education. Some of the main takeaways from that guidance is to do everything we can to maximize in-school learning. That really has to be the top priority. And I think for so many schools that were not able to bring students back last year, it's an even higher priority. But the CDC, IDPH, and the Illinois State Board of Education have made it very, very clear that they want to see kids back in schools in person, this year. And for us, it's kind of a little bit of deja vu because we were there last year and we were able to bring kids back safely. But we continue to make that our top priority as well. The CDC also and IDPH also know that prevention and mitigation are still important. And again, we believe that prevention and mitigation are important as well. We believe that the plan that we have will allow for appropriate prevention, appropriate mitigation, and still offer some level of flexibility in using kind of those layered, that layered approach. When it comes to mask wearing and social distancing, the more distance you have, the less need for masking, and the less distance you have, the more need for masking. The CDC has, or IDPH rather, has adjusted the social distancing parameter to be 3 feet, not necessarily the 6 feet. Just so you know, last year in our schools, we were 3 to 6 feet at the elementary school and 6 feet at the middle school. Overall, we never reached over more than a 2% positivity rate within our schools. We weren't seeing the in-school spread and the transmission that many of us thought we would see, or many people thought we would see at the beginning of school last year, at this time last year. So those are all really positive things. Our lived experience tells us that schools necessarily aren't necessarily the super spreaders that we thought they would be, that using those layered mitigation strategies allows us to keep kids in school learning safely. Again, changes to mitigation strategies should be slow and gradual, and vaccinations are strongly recommended. And that's one of the layers that I'm going to talk about the layers here in a second. Vaccinations are strongly recommended. So while we realize that vaccinating is a personal choice, we really do encourage our families to get vaccinated. So we will make information available on the importance of vaccinations and where you can obtain a vaccination for yourself, or if you have a child that is 12 and over, where you can get a vaccination for your child. So again, we are strongly recommending that. And speaking of vaccines, it is our approach to provide the community with information about how and where to get vaccinated and accurate information about the efficacy of those vaccines. Obviously, strongly recommended. I think now that we have one available, we should do everything we can to keep one another safe, and that includes getting vaccinated. We will not, as a school, collect vaccination status unless mandated to do so. My personal belief is I believe it's an overreach of schools to start creating lists of people that are vaccinated and unvaccinated, especially because it is a personal decision. So we will not be asking for vaccination cards or status or creating any type of list in that regard. We may, however, inquire about vaccination status when it comes to contact tracing. And I know we're going to get some questions on contact tracing, and we're going to get some questions on quarantine. And in all fairness, the answer may be, I don't have that information yet, because IDPH, ISB, and the CDC continue to evolve and change some of the rules around contact tracing and quarantining. So it's a bit of a moving target there. But if we're in a situation where we need to contact trace, we may give you a call and say, hey, is your child vaccinated? That will possibly change the need or the requirement to quarantine. So while we're not collecting status, we may inquire in the path down contact tracing as we try and figure out who may be a close contact. So when we speak about layered mitigations, we have our first kind of layer, which is situational masking. And when it comes to kind of the elevator speech around situational masking, we would want kids to mask up when they can't maintain a safe social distance. And I'm going to go through a series of slides that kind of run through different scenarios around where masking would be required and where it wouldn't in our current plan. Obviously, social distancing is really important, and we had some pretty good success, actually really good success, with keeping kids separated and keeping them socially distant over the course of their school day. We expect our elementary school to be well over 3 feet of social distance. Same thing at our middle school. Probably more likely to be able to get some 6-foot social distancing at the middle school and some of the classrooms at the middle school, just because we have some larger classrooms over there. I'll let Griffin and Kathleen will talk about that when we get to slides specific to the schools. Testing for symptomatic and close contacts rather. Last year, we did apply for and receive the ability to become a testing site. So we have applied for some free Binex Now tests and would make those available to families more so as a convenience, right? Like if we know that if your child is symptomatic or your child has been a close contact, and we can rule them out from having to quarantine, which again, the quarantine rules are evolving. I'm not saying that we will be able to rule them out with the test, but if we are, we will have the ability to do that testing here in school, which saves you a trip to, CVS or Walgreens or your pediatrician to get them tested. So as a convenience to families. With universal masking, there is a test to stay option. And it sounds like I said, the governor will implement universal masking later today. And if that is the case, and we are able to use universal masking, or I'm sorry, use the test to stay option, we would then require a test on days 1, 3, 5, and 7. Negative tests on those days allow kids to stay without having to quarantine at all. Now, it doesn't necessarily need to be our test. You're welcome to take your child to the pediatrician or another county testing site or state testing site. But we, again, wanted to try and make it as frictionless as possible for our families. Obviously, promoting vaccinations, we think that's an important piece to our layered mitigations. Hand and respiratory hygiene, again, the principals will talk a little bit about how we will help promote hand and respiratory hygiene, things like having kids use hand sanitizer when they enter and exit classrooms. Ventilation is always important. As we mentioned last year, we did some upgrades to our HVAC system to make sure that we have the maximum amount of fresh air return. And we've got our HVAC systems turned up as high as they will go to continually cycle fresh air into the buildings when it's nice days outside. Obviously, things like opening windows so that we can get a lot of fresh air into the building. Cleaning and disinfection. We hit cleaning and disinfection really hard last year with kids wiping in and wiping out, and with at least at the middle school where they're changing classes, and then also our custodians constantly just moving throughout the building, cleaning touch surfaces, and then also cleaning lunchroom tables prior to the next child coming in to sit. And then obviously encouraging sick kids to stay home. While we're not necessarily requiring families to do the symptom screener this year, we are going to really encourage people that if you are sick or you're not feeling well, take a rest day, stay home, and if you need to get tested, get tested. Okay. So I want to talk a little bit more specifically about masking in our classrooms. And again, this is with our situational masking model, not necessarily universal masking model, which we believe we'll end up with eventually later today. In a classroom, when students are able to maintain a social distance of equal to or greater than 3 feet, we would have masks on. If kids are working in groups, if they're working in partners, if they're sitting at the carpet doing, their reading circle, or working in stations, or in the middle school, if they're doing a science lab, they would, and they aren't able to maintain that, they would put their masks on. So essentially, when kids are sitting in their desks, that would be an opportunity to take their masks off. Again, it's not required. We're not going to mandate the kids take their masks off at any point. Anyone who wants to wear their mask is more than welcome to throughout the school day. So that's a little bit about classrooms, some classroom activities. Masks are required for all district transportation. So when kids are on buses, and that is actually a mandate from IDPH, that all transportation requires kids to wear masks. As kids are entering and exiting the building, we would ask them to keep their masks on. When they're transitioning from class to class, we would have them doing the same. When kids are out in the hallways or going to restrooms or in common spaces, we would also have masks on. So pretty much anytime they're outside of the classroom, they would be wearing masks. At lunch, and again, this is not any different than what we were able to pull off last year. Obviously, kids need to take their masks off to eat lunch. And at recess, when they're outside, and they would be able to take their masks off as well. If they were inside and unable to maintain that safe social distance, we would require masks to be on at that point. Just speaking of lunch, we will also offer the free lunch to anyone again this year. So I know that was a really nice benefit that we were able to provide for families. We're going to be able to do that again for the 2021-2022 school year. When we think about PE and some of the requirements that we have around PE, if they're indoors, and we would require masks to be on when we're not able to maintain a safe social distance. Outdoor PE, obviously, the guidance allows us to take masks off anytime we're outside. So we would allow students to take their masks off during PE, outdoor PE. Inside, they would keep their masks on when they can't maintain a safe social distance of 3 to 6 feet.
Dr. Palzet, before you pass the microphone over to Ms. Tomei, will you take a look at the Q&A questions just as they go back to a couple of things that you said? I think that'll be helpful just to keep it all connected to it.
Sure. Oh, great. And Griffin, thank you for moderating a little bit there. So the first question was actually in the chat, and then I'll jump into the Q&A. I'm curious why we're not following the experts' recommendations, AAP, CDC, Illinois, BOE, for universal masking. So again, those guidelines are recommendations. As we learned last year, we are not held to the guidance. That it is just that, it's guidance and recommended. When creating this plan, I did meet with some local physicians and ran the plan by them and asked them about the appropriateness of our plan. They felt comfortable with the direction that we were going. I think the other thing that's important to remember, when you think about the AAP, when you think about the CDC, and then even IDPH just wholly adopting the CDC's guidelines, which kind of puts them then in the same category. These are national, federal agencies, right? They're making decisions based on kind of worst case scenarios. What is happening in the Georgias and the Louisianas and the Floridas of the world, where you have much, much higher positivity rates and much, much lower vaccination rates, where we don't necessarily see that here. Now, in all fairness, it may be a bit moot at this point, because we do believe that there will be a mandate for all K-12 schools in Illinois. However, we learned last year the recommendation was 6 feet for social distancing, and we knew we wouldn't be able to implement our plan with fidelity and maintain 6 feet at the elementary school. And we went with as much social distance as we could, and but we're not 6 feet, and we're able to safely implement that. So that's an example of kind of living and learning from our previous experiences. I'll just take a look at the Q&A. So the first is, Oh, the test. Yeah, it would be a nasal. The Binex now is a nasal swab that we would be able to implement here at school. Great question. Can you repeat? Oh, the days that they would need to test in order for tests to stay would
Yes.
be on days 1, 3, 5, and 7. So negative tests on 1, 3, 5, and 7 would allow kids to stay and not have to quarantine at home. Will testing be required for vaccinated people anytime symptoms are present? We haven't gotten guidance on that. We probably would test vaccinated individuals if symptoms are present, especially when we start thinking about some of those more telltale signs like loss of taste or loss of smell or something like that. Gym activities were very limited last year. Will sports activities resume to more typical schedule this year? Yes. I actually just got up right before this phone call, just got off of a call with the area superintendents, the Lyons Township superintendents, and we are planning on moving forward with full sports schedules. There will be some mitigation strategies in place, and we may limit spectators, but we do plan on having normal sports and as close to normal PE as we can. Yes. Will school staff members also be expected to mask in common areas? The answer is yes. Mhm. All right, I'm going to keep moving us on, and we'll have another opportunity to answer questions as we move through. These are great questions. Thank you very much. And I think the next slide, I'm going to throw it over to Kathleen Tomei to talk a little bit more specifically about the elementary school. So Kathleen, take it away.
All right. I first of all want to just say welcome back to the school year. We're really excited to have everyone back in school and to open up again. So thank you to the administrative team for all of your work working together with me to make sure that the elementary school is ready to go, along with the middle school. So at the elementary school, a lot of things are going to look very familiar. Things that we had in place last year, we found very successful, and we will continue many of those. Our arrival time, we are bumping it up a little earlier. We found ways to be very efficient with that, and we want to make sure that we're maximizing instructional time with students at school. So our K-4 students are going to arrive between 8:45 and 8:55. They're going to enter through the color-coded doors as we had identified last year. So those are identified by classroom teacher. You will find out which teacher enters which door in my newsletter that is ready to go out. Our students will line up outside those doors and then come into the building. That just helps us spread out the number of students in any one hallway or staircase. As Dr. Palzet shared, we will have masks on during arrival, and we'll have a lot of staff both outside and inside helping to ensure student safety and make sure students are getting to the right places. Our dismissal will be essentially just a reverse of that same process. Students will exit through their color-coded doors. Again, looking to maximize instructional time with students in the building. We're going to dismiss our bus riders at 3:15. We'll get our bus riders off, and then all of our other students will be dismissed. So that includes any activities, extra innings, walkers, and our car pickups. So it again will look very similar to last year. I will do a little asterisk here that, again, give us a little grace the first couple days of school. It's always a slower process to help students find their ways the first couple days of school, but it does pick up. So know that it'll be slow the first couple days, and then everyone will be back into the rhythm. Thank you. We can go to the next slide, Dr. Palzet. Inside the classrooms, again, it will look very similar to last year and certainly to how we ended the year last year. Our students will be at individual desks and we'll have that 3 to 6 foot spacing. We were, for the most part, about 4.5 feet in classrooms last year, and we expect to be the same this year. And again, we will be able to cover all curriculum content. Since we have a full day of school, everything will be covered: reading, math, writing, science, social studies, and we'll have all of our specials. Lunch, we're able to this year do staggered times. So each grade level will be eating at the same time and then be out on the playground. So it's one grade level in this space at a time. Again, like last year, our students will be sitting at individual seats, and those desks will all be 6 feet apart. As Dr. Palzet had shared, we will be offering a lunch to any student who wants it, or of course, students can bring their own lunch from home. Go ahead. Thank you. As I mentioned, we're going to have all of our specials back this year, and they are all in-person instruction. So that includes art, library, music, PE, Spanish, and in 4th grade, we offer our STEAM class for our students. Last year, we worked strictly with individual supplies. This year, there will be some shared supplies in classes like art with increased cleaning protocols in place to make sure that shared supplies are clean for all students. After school activities, this is where we'll see some change this year. We're going back to pre-pandemic offerings. We'll be looking at offering all of our typical after school activities in our clubs, which happen either during the day or after school. We send a brochure out to all of our families that list all the different activities that will come out in early September. So be on the lookout for that and see what your children might be interested in. And then again, we'll have the 4:30 activity bus that is available to any student that is part of our that is involved in any of our after school activities. And
Go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Sontag here to talk a little bit about the middle school and some of the mitigations and changes that'll take place at the middle school. So Griffin, take it away.
Sounds good. Thank you. Thanks, Kathleen. Nice job putting it all together for the elementary. And as you'll see, a lot of our slides are going to look very similar so that you can hear about what's happening at the middle school. Some changes, but a lot, like Ms. Tomei said, a lot of things will look the same as they were last year. And my asterisk will be to start. I continue to be optimistic that we're going to start this way, and then my hope is that we'll be able to move in a kind of a less restrictive direction. But one of the things that our building leadership team discussed throughout the second half of last year, heading into this year, was some of these they were really mitigation strategies that we put in place, but we found that they were really positive for all the students, like staggered dismissal for the grade levels, like not having a 3-minute passing period where the kids are going next door in their classroom. So then they spend 2 minutes and 45 seconds, jumping on each other or all deciding to go to the bathroom and so forth. So we are going to continue to, when we dismiss, we're going to continue to send the kids directly to the next classroom, and then they can go from there. So arrival, similar, where we turned around where we pull in and where we go in the front of the school, but 8:15 to 8:25. And so those grade level entrances will be open beginning at 8:15. We'll have staff supervising at those entrances. Again, we created this prior to hearing what Governor Pritzker is going to be saying. So masks on during arrival, and again, the staff supervision. Dismissal, again, similar to last year, we've found that if we can get the students who are riding the bus to get to the bus and head out, along with the 5th and 6th graders up in the front circle for anybody who's riding their bike, walking, or getting picked up, we can get everybody out of there. We got down to about 8 minutes last year. So we wanted to start at 10 minutes. And the other reason why we wanted to start with 10 was so people don't feel rushed, like they're going to miss the bus. We want to eliminate that stress. But also, we are going to have students assigned lockers this year. And so if students use those lockers, or when they use their lockers, that will take a couple minutes to get to their locker, potentially after school. So I'll talk about that in a future slide. We'll have grade level entrances and grade level exits masks on, and we'll also have staff at dismissal. So in the classrooms, continuing with the individual student desks, and I know we've been investing in flexible furniture and tables so that partners can work together and move around, but we will keep those in storage, again, with the asterisk to start the year again. Individual student desks, 3 to 6 foot spacing, since the guidance talks more about 3 feet. And that will also allow us to eliminate the in-person Zoom, or we called it Zoom overflow as well, where last year, because of this being 6 feet and some of our classes larger than that, we did have some students who left the classroom and went and Zoomed from the library. So at this point, yes, Zoom will not be an option for anybody who's not in school. So that will not be something we'll be doing. So depending on the maximum number of students in each classroom, we'll spread out the desks as far as possible. And so I think it'll be more in the 4 to 5 foot for most of the classrooms, and some will continue to be at 6. We also will have all curricular classes since we'll be here full day, and obviously they'll all be in person. At lunch, we are looking to stagger our times. We're going to start the year with a very similar situation to last year. And for those of you that are incoming 5th graders, you wouldn't know how the middle school did it. So I'll explain it very briefly. But we actually, we'll set up 2 locations. And we also moved to 1 grade level per period for lunch. So basically half of the grade level is outside at recess. The other half of the grade level is eating lunch. And about halfway through that period, so after about 20 minutes, then the group that's outside will come inside and head over to the other lunch space that we'll set up. And then once the group finishes who's eating lunch, they'll head outside. And so if that ends up taking 20 minutes, great. If it ends up taking 25 minutes, that's fine too, because we'll have 2 individual spaces for that. And I want to give a shout out to our custodial staff for just the extra work that takes every day to set up and take down. But at lunch, we'll have individual seats, 6 foot at least spacing. And again, we're going to provide lunch for everyone this year, or students are always welcome to bring their own. Other information, lockers will be available, but we are going to expect that the kids will be utilizing their backpacks and going from class to class. Again, one of those things where we found that kids had what they needed for class because that excuse of it's in my locker, or the executive functioning need where they forgot to bring something, didn't happen last year. They had it because they had everything in their backpack. This year, we're going to teach the kids about having their morning stuff, their morning books and folders, and their afternoon. And the times the kids could go to their lockers, if they choose, would be before school, at lunch, and after school. So we're going to limit those times of when they go, and obviously encourage spacing and give some additional time during those periods to get to the next location after that. Also for PE, we are going to begin the year not changing for PE and not having to go into the locker room. The locker room really does not set up a great situation for being able to spread out and then changing. And what we've talked about with our teachers and with the kids is, other schools in our township have elementary school has 5th and 6th graders there, and those students don't change for PE. So for our 5th and 6th graders, it wouldn't be that big of a deal if they were at a different school in the area. 7th and 8th graders, we've been talking about why do we change for PE? What's the benefit of changing? Obviously the stinky clothes as adolescence kicks in and so forth when they work really hard. But we do lose 5 minutes of class on either end of that. And so if you take 5 minutes to change on either side of a 40-minute class, and then you also go outside and you go across the street through the amazing facilities at the Park District, you really don't get very long to play. So PE teachers will be reminding the kids that they need gym shoes. That will be the key. And be thoughtful about what the attire is for school, knowing that we're not going to change for PE to begin the year, and then we'll see how it goes. I think many people bought PE uniforms. We're going to hold on to those for right now, and we will work through what to do with that in the future. If we need to swap you for a bigger size, if it's second trimester we change, or if it's the following year we end up changing, we'll make sure that that all gets taken care of, because I know purchasing PE uniforms through the registration process was something there. So I would envision that if things improve in our situations and go well, we would look at phasing in changing for PE, starting with 8th graders, and working, since they've done that before and they know how to do it. Back to after school activities, offerings will, I want to say one more thing about PE too. I think we learned a lot about PE last year at both the middle and the elementary, where it started with very much individualized, you're doing yoga, you're doing things at your own station. And as we move through the year, I think we saw that our mitigation strategies were working. And I think the biggest key one was sanitizing on the way into the gym, and then sanitizing on the way out from the gym. So if you shared a material, you use the same racket as somebody else without cleaning it in between. As long as you sanitize, and the teacher stood at the doors and made sure the kids sanitized before and after, we were able to open back up much more the amount of activities that we did in PE. Finally, our after school activities will also be very more typical towards pre-pandemic. Band orchestra, Tiger Times, our homework help. And we are doing a new partnership this year with the Leader Shop, so we're excited about that. Open library is there. We'll have other clubs, we'll have sports, and we also have an activity bus that picks the kids up around 4:30.
Great, thank you, Griffin. I also wanted to mention, when it comes to pick up and drop off, we aren't going to be doing the temperature checks at the beginning of the day. So that hopefully will streamline things and get kids into the building a little bit faster. I know that was a bit of a pain and took some time and slowed things down in some of those drop off lines. So that's a positive change that we're looking forward to making. So let me advance here and see what we got next. So, okay, so now we'll go through. We've got some questions to answer. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so if Pritzker's mask mandate is removed at some point this year, will you follow recommendations of IDPH, ISB, and CCDPH? I don't know how to answer that question, because I don't know what those recommendations will be, and I don't know how we would apply them. Often when we get recommendations from some of the health departments or from ISB, they're often not complete and still lots of questions that need to be answered. So at this point, it's hard for me to make a commitment to following whatever that the recommendation may be, just because I don't know what those recommendations would be. My hope would be that as we, as things start to change, we have some latitude to implement a plan that works well for our district. The second part of the question is also, who are these local physicians who you're listening to over experts from multiple health departments? They are community members, people whose kids go to school here and have a vested interest in our school and ensuring that their kids are safe and that their neighbors' kids are safe. We have a question regarding those tests. Are they only for the children or also for children's families? Great question. From what I understand, the grant in which we are getting the tests from, they're really for students, for current students. However, we may be able to use them similar to the lunch for anyone in the household who is under 18. So if there are high school aged children in the house or children who aren't yet of school age, we may be able to use them for those. I will get clarification on that, but I'm fairly certain they're not necessarily for anyone in the family, for mom or dad. I think they are specific to students who attend the schools. Is the test going to be performed in the middle school? It's actually going to be performed at both schools. Our nurses will do the test. They've been trained and gone through the training that needed to happen. Actually, last year, I went through the process of getting us a CLIA waiver, which makes us a certified testing site. I also, in addition to having my superintendent certificate, I'm now a testing director, which is something I never thought I would have to do. So we are able to have these tests administered by our staff at each school. This person did write down, it also means that children will be going to the nurse for testing. Secretaries and nurse school personnel will be, we have had kids coming down over the course of the year to the nurse's office. We have had a COVID room, which we will use again this year. What I would hope we be able to also do, and again, I still need to get clarification, so please don't take this as a final answer, but if a child is showing symptoms in the morning when they wake up, having the parent drive them to school, we'll test them in the front seat of the car, and within 15 minutes, we should know whether or not that child can come to school or not. So it takes them out of the nurse's office, and it also makes it a bit easier for parents. Again, I don't know if we're going to be able to do that or allowed to do that, but that would be an ultimate inconvenience for families. If the mask mandate is not implemented, what is your threshold for instituting universal masking that is recommended by? Great. So what we would do, and what we've learned from the lived experience of last year, is that the positivity rate in the community doesn't necessarily translate to positive cases in our school. When we saw positive cases really going up in the community last year, we did not see that translating to a same rate of infection inside the school, or a same rate of transmission inside the school. What we've done is created a system where if we had 2 connected cases within a classroom, then that classroom would mask up for a period of 10 to 14 days. If we had 4 connected cases in a grade level, then that grade would mask up for a period of 10 to 14 days. However, we have not put a protocol in place for an entire school or entire district, because there are nuances and differences in how kids are interacting with one another. And what happens at one school isn't necessarily indicative of what's happening at the other school. This last one is, thank you for all the informative session. When will families receive a packet with the calendar and school info? So on Friday, the principals will be sending out an email that has more specific information about the start of the year. We no longer have the hard copy calendar, but we have important information and calendar information on our website, which you can access. Okay. Are you requiring children to wear the gym shirt on the day they have gym? So at the middle school, they have gym every day, and they aren't changing, at least to start the year. At the elementary school, we've never had kids changing for gym, and they just participate in gym in their street clothes. So there really is no need for the gym shirt to be brought to school, at least at this point. Is there any possibility to go back to remote learning, and what would make that decision? I don't see that happening. Moving back to a remote learning plan is not something that I see on the horizon for our district. The only way I could see something like that happening would be high levels of in-school transmission and or a mandate from the state to do so. During the time that children may be sick and are being tested on day 1, 3, 5, and 7, will the child be required to stay home if they test negative? No. So that's the whole purpose of test to stay. that as long as you continue to have negative tests on day 1, 3, 5, and 7, you'd be able to stay in school. So again, that is really a benefit of this new protocol. And again, there's so much is changing. I don't want to get our hopes up too far that the test to stay will be fully implemented, at least in Cook County, because oftentimes Cook County does things differently than other parts of the state. But that it would not require kids to stay home. That's the whole purpose of the test to stay, is that they get to stay in school. Just to clarify, regardless of impending governor mandate, it is still the district's policy that all preschoolers will be required to mask. Correct. Yeah, we are going to require all preschoolers to mask just because of the nature of their learning and working in stations and the close proximity and the difficulty to really help them social distance. So the staff will also be masking in those classrooms as well. Will on-site testing be available for staff or just students? I have to get clarification on that. From what I understand, it is just students. It may be extended to staff, though. That's a really good question. I'm not sure. If yes, will a child be marked absent, or will the school be offering e-learning? So we are not offering our Zoom e-learning. What we are looking at is having kids, essentially what they would do if they were sick, a normal sick day. They would access Schoology, they would access Seesaw, and we would work with our staff to have some time where a staff member can touch base with those kids, get them started, answer questions, but we are not offering the Zoom-based learning or the synchronous learning that we were before. Just a thank you for getting kids back in the classroom. Most current recommendations from IDPH regard at least 3 feet of distancing combined with indoor masking when people are not fully vaccinated. How can you not follow those recommendations and keep children? So again, to reiterate those recommendations, we are requiring kids to be vaccinated. However, when they can maintain that social distance, they would have the option of taking their mask off. And again, any child can keep their mask on for the majority of, or all of the day if they so choose.
Just to clarify, Dr. Palzet, you didn't mean we aren't requiring the kids to be vaccinated, to wear their masks when they're closer than 3 feet.
Correct. They would wear their masks when they're closer than 3 feet.
Right. I think you just misspoke, so I just wanted to clarify.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So to be clear, if a child is sick, perhaps not COVID, we can get them tested to stay in class. And the testing is not just for those known exposed, but all kids that are sick. That's our understanding today. That may change. My understanding is if someone wakes up with the sniffles, they can test. That negative test then allows them to come back to class. However, that can change. So please don't, it's unfortunate. I don't think I can be held to anything that's said today because it constantly changes. So what's the plan for children who are quarantining? So we're working with our staff to make some adjustments to due dates and possibly looking at not pass fail, but just having homework turned in more so for review. But we will not offer the Zoom rooms that we had in the past. So this is a question about shoes and gym shoes. Girls want to wear fancy shoes and change, e.g. Converse without platform. Are the children in middle school able to change shoes, not clothes, only shoes? Also necessary for winter and winter boots. Children may need to change shoes. So I'm going to turn this one over to the principals because that's a better principal question.
Yeah, for us at the middle school, we'll make that work. We'll just have to figure out if they're going to stop at their locker on their way to PE class to swap out, or if we'll assign PE lockers early on in the year, knowing that some kids might just put shoes in there. And then when they arrive at gym class, they would go and do the shoes. So we need to figure that out. It's a great question because, we know that not all kids wear gym shoes to school every day.
Fair enough. We have the last question, and we have one in the chat as well. It says, is the 1, 3, 5, and 7 days to stay in school just for close contact or symptomatic also? From what I understand, it's for both. The regs that I have read up to this point don't specify symptomatic versus close contact. So I believe it is for both. And one of the things that we did learn last year is that often, you know, kids get the sniffles, you know what I mean? A kid has, you know, I not to be crass, but a kid has diarrhea on a particular day. That should not necessarily exclude that child for 10 to 14 days. So we want to do everything we can to keep kids in school. So from what I understand, it covers both close contact and symptomatic. We do have a question here in the chat. Oh, it was a question that was already asked. It was about going back to remote and what conditions would set that. So we're getting a couple more questions. Great. So one of the things that our nurses had brought up, I met with our nurses earlier this week, and this is going to be in the principal letter that you get on Friday, that if your child does have allergies or a medical condition that may manifest itself and look like COVID, to get a note from your doctor now saying, hey, Jimmy has allergies. He may have sniffles and runny eyes and a slight fever, whatever the symptoms may be, so that when he ends up down in the nurse's office, we have that letter on file. We very easily can say, nope, it's allergies, and send them back to class. It just streamlines things. So you know, if you're able to get those letters in advance, just going to make life a whole lot easier. Thank you for the reminder on mentioning that. And then just a thank you for all your hard work. Any other, oh, we got some more. Yeah. Should staff? Yeah, I mean, if staff the question is, should staff get that same doctor's note? Sure. And if you're comfortable sharing that, again, there are some restrictions given HIPAA and all of that. I don't want to, that's not something I could necessarily mandate, but if as an adult, if you know every you know, September you're going to have hay fever issues and it's going to look a whole lot like COVID, sure, feel free to share that with us, and we're happy to keep that on file and keep that confidential. When the teachers move from one class to another, yeah, I mean, teachers will be wearing masks. They would follow the same protocols that kids would follow. For example, if the art teacher will be in their own classrooms, so they would follow the same protocols that kids would follow. All right, well, we don't seem to have any more questions popping up in the chat. Again, I want to thank Kathleen, Beth, and Griffin for being here and helping to support what I know is going to be a great year. I am so incredibly excited to see all of your children and have what I know is going to be a great year. Our theme for this year, our opening kind of day theme is going to be back to better, and I know that we will be back to better come August 19th. So we're looking forward to seeing your children really soon. Have a great day and enjoy this great day.